BYU got screwed here. I don't think BYU is the only Big 12 team that got screwed here. I think TCU shouldn't have been. I really was lobbying, and of course I was, for TCU to be a 7 seed. There are a couple other spots, like a Texas Tech and Kentucky in round 2. I hate that. The fact that Baylor and Texas were the two teams that seem to have the easiest, or at least the most favorable spots in the conference. It's like, what would be like if BYU? Well, let's do that first. Let's approach the BYU one first. If BYU did not have a religious affiliation, if BYU could play on Sundays, we know they would be a 5 seed. I thought the Cougars were good enough to be a 4 seed. But the problem was all the 5 seeds in the country are playing on the Sunday slate. Either they're round 1 or the weekend 1 or weekend 2 games would fall on a Sunday. And BYU cannot play on Sundays. So their seeding hurt. And the rule is kind of vaguely worded as, if a team has an extenuating circumstance, and it's basically a BYU rule, your seed can be either moved up or down to accommodate that. Will it ever be moved up? No. And in this situation, it was moved down. And now for BYU, they're not in Salt Lake City. They're not a 4 seed. They're a 6 seed. The consolation prize that the committee gave them is Duquesne in round 1. Duquesne's an 11 seed that's really a 13 or a 14 seed. They are not going to be able to keep pace with BYU. If there is a lock of all locks in the 6 versus 11 category, it is BYU. They are favored by 8 right now at FanDuel, and I'm going to win so much money by taking BYU -8. Then in round 2 against Illinois, again, I think the problem with this, they're not in Salt Lake City. I was ready for BYU, and what they did this season to be a 4 seed, to be in Salt Lake City, to have it played out where you're thinking, okay, now as the 4 seed, the 5 seed in round 2, maybe they do get a San Diego State, who I think is dangerous, but they've already beaten them once this year. Or maybe they get a 5 seed like St. Mary's, who I believe BYU would beat by double digits. Instead, you get 3 seed Illinois, because it's the 6 seed, you got to play up. Illinois, one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I've told you, my hope is that they're worn out at this point. They played too far in the Big Ten tournament. They had the wrong, Brad Underwood fails again in March. That's the goal if you're a BYU fan. They should have been a 4 seed. They were certainly a 5 seed. And I have such a reverence and respect for the religious affiliation, the commitment to faith here. And it's like, it sucks. It's like, I wish that BYU certainly had a better seed. But also, I respect that they are so committed to their, the flagship staple of the university, their faith, that they can't. And in the end, that hurt them in March. Tough. For Texas Tech, I was happy they got a 6 seed. I was worried they'd fall on the 8-9 line. But Kentucky in round 2? For TCU, facing Purdue in round 2. Now, of the 1 seeds, that is, I would rather you face Purdue than UConn. I would probably rather you face Purdue than North Carolina. But, that's tough. For Kansas, I know Stanford lost by 50 to Purdue earlier in the year, but for Kansas, you're playing a team that shoots the three-pointer at a 40% clip. That is absurd. Unbelievable. And talking about teams getting screwed, it's the ones that are outside of the bracket. Oklahoma? And I think since January 7th, they're 1-10 against tournament teams. That's pretty bad. There was a skid there at the end of the year, but the fact that Texas was rewarded a 7 seed, but Oklahoma got left out altogether. Those bodies of work are just not that far off. They're not. Then for a Kansas State, for Cincinnati, just the disrespect of not being right there on the last 4 left out or first 4 out or whatever it is. The way that, Kansas State got to win in the Big 12 tournament, Cincinnati got to win in the Big 12 tournament. K-State did it against a March Madness 7 seed. Kansas did, or Cincinnati did it against Kansas, who's a 4 seed and always gets the respect, has the big Kansas brand. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's so odd that ACC coaches can scream that net is this rigged thing toward the Big 12. And then the Big 12 has teams like Kansas State, who I think would have been a top 5 squad in the SEC and certainly been in March, or teams like Cincinnati, who is unbelievably good compared to what I had expected from them. And they're on the cutting room floor. I just don't know. It feels like we're punishing teams with either their seeding or where they are, or leaving them out altogether for being in a really good conference because there's this narrative that the Big 12 has rigged something. I don't think I like that. Hopefully Baylor can beat Clemson and their coach into submission in round 2 if Clemson even beats New Mexico, and I don't think they will. Coming up, who has the best chance to win it all? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. LinkedIn Talent Solutions is your place to go when you need to make a hire. I needed to make a hire. So what did I do? I went to LinkedIn Talent Solutions. The reason why is because I needed somebody helping to run some social media stuff. Like, hey, can I find somebody who's like a quasi intern to be able to run the Twitter when I can't? When I'm, like I was on a 15-hour bus ride from Baton Rouge chasing the Savannah Bananas this weekend. I need some help watching the games. So LinkedIn found me a guy. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. It gives access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. They do that all while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. They know you're wearing so many hats. They want to help you get the resources to hire. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for this. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Keep in mind that terms and conditions do apply.